The poor waitress counted her last few crumpled bills behind the counter. An elderly black couple sat in her section, staring at an empty plate they couldn't afford to fill. She swallowed hard, made a decision, and used her entire savings to buy them a warm meal. They cried. She smiled. No one else noticed. The next morning, a luxury car pulled up outside the diner. A millionaire stepped out asking for her by name. The waitress froze. She had no idea her kindness had been recorded. Before we begin, subscribe to our channel and comment where you are watching from so we can bring more stories like these. By 6:10 a.m., Emily Parker already felt like she was 3 hours behind on life. The bell over the diner door dinged lazily as another regular shuffled out, leaving the smell of burnt coffee and cheap cologne behind. The open 6 a.m. sign flickered in the front window like it was tired too. Emily's feet ached, and her back protested with every slight bend, and her shift had technically just started. "Refill, sweetie, when you get a chance," called a trucker at the far booth, tapping his mug. Emily forced a small smile, the kind she'd perfected, warm enough to seem genuine, even when her body was running on autopilot. "Yes, sir, got you," she said, scooping up a coffee pot in one hand and a stack of used plates in the other. The Maple Street diner wasn't much to look at. Faded red booths, sticky laminated menus, a humming neon sign that buzzed just loud enough to be annoying. But it was steady work, and steady work meant rent. Rent meant she and her mother stayed inside another M. That was enough reason for Emily to keep showing up. Most people only saw the uniform. Black sneakers, black pants, pale blue button-up shirt with Maple Street stitched in red over the chest. Long blonde hair pulled into a ponytail. Tired green eyes above a polite smile. They didn't see what existed outside the fluorescent lighting. They didn't see the cramped rental room she slept in. Barely big enough for a bed, a dresser, and a wobbly nightstand where she kept exactly 3 treasures. A photo of her with her mom before the illness. A cheap candle that smelled like vanilla. A glass jar with a handwritten label, rent and mom's meds. They didn't see her mother, Denise, mid-50s, oxygen tube, eyes still bright despite the pain. They didn't see the nights Emily spent rubbing her mom's back through coughing fits, or the quiet way her mom apologized for being a burden and how Emily always cut her off. "You're not a burden, Mom. You're the reason I'm still going." They didn't see her double shifts, the overtime she never complained about because hours meant money, and money meant medication. Most of them never even learned her name. Just, "Miss, hey, refills, excuse me, check." But Emily kept smiling, not because life was easy, because if she stopped, she might fall apart. The morning rush came and went. Coffee refills, eggs over easy, toast that had to be remade twice. Her coworker Sophie showed up late as usual, lashes perfect, hair flawless, attitude sharper than the steak knives. "Morning," Sophie yawned, tossing her purse behind the counter. "You look dead already, Em. Rough night?" Emily shrugged. "Just tired. Mom had a bad cough. I'm good." "You should ask for a day off," Sophie muttered, tying on her apron. Emily huffed a soft laugh. "A day off means a day with no tips." Sophie rolled her eyes. Yeah. Grind now, cry later. You say that every week." The cook, Manny, shouted from the window. "Order up! 3 pancakes, 2 specials, and a heart attack with extra bacon." Emily grabbed the plates, moving on instinct. "Table 3, table 5, counter 1, she recited under her breath. She moved like she'd memorized every step, because she had. They came in around 11:30 a.m., right between the late breakfast stragglers and the early lunch crowd. An elderly couple, they moved slowly, carefully, hands intertwined as if letting go meant one of them might fall. The man wore an old brown coat, sleeves frayed, collar worn thin. His hair was white and thin, combed back neatly. The woman had a faded blue dress and a sweater that looked too light for the weather. Her gray hair was pinned up with shaking fingers. They paused by the door. The hostess stand was unmanned because Maple Street Diner didn't really have a hostess. It had whoever wasn't taking an order at that moment. Emily saw them and immediately stepped forward. "Hi there," she said softly. "Just two today?" The old man glanced at the woman beside him, then back at Emily. "Yes, ma'am," he said quietly. If that's all right." "Of course it is," she smiled. "You can sit anywhere you like. Window's nice if you want some light." The woman smiled faintly, eyes already tired. "The window sounds lovely." Emily led them to a booth near the front window, the sunshine softening the harshness of the diner lights. She handed them menus, though she already sensed something in the way their fingers touched the plastic covers. Hesitation, worry, fear, not of the food, of the price. From the counter, while pretending to wipe down a section that was already clean, Emily watched them. The old man squinted at the menu, lips moving as he read the numbers more than the words. The old woman slid her trembling hand into the pocket of her sweater and pulled out a small coin purse. She opened it discreetly. Emily's heart clenched. She knew that look, that quiet horror of counting what little you have and knowing it won't stretch far enough. The woman tipped the coin purse slightly. Pennies, a few nickels, 2 quarters. The old man gently covered her hand. "It's all right, Margaret," he whispered. "We can share something." She shook her head, eyes glossy. "You need to eat, Harold." Emily turned away quickly, pretending not to notice. But she'd seen enough. At the booth behind them, 2 women in business attire snickered. "If you can't afford to eat out, don't eat out," one muttered. "Seriously," the other agreed. "This isn't a charity. I'm not trying to watch people count pennies while I'm eating." Another customer at the counter eyed the elderly couple with annoyance. "They're gonna sit there all day and order nothing," he muttered under his breath, "probably just here for the heat." Sophie walked past, blowing a bubble with her gum. She glanced at the old couple, then rolled her eyes. "Oof, they look broke," she whispered to Emily. "Bet they're gonna waste a table for an hour and buy 1 slice of toast. Or maybe just water," another server snorted. Emily's jaw tightened. She'd grown up hearing the same tone when people talked about her and her mom. "She's always at the pharmacy. They probably can't pay rent. She should have worked harder in school." Sophie flicked her pen against her order pad. "Honestly," she said, "we're busy enough. Just tell them we need the table if they're not ordering." Emily looked at her, shocked. "I'm not doing that," she said firmly. Sophie shrugged. "Suit yourself. Just don't expect a sympathy bonus on your paycheck." She grabbed her order pad anyway and walked to the couple with a gentle smile. "Hi again," she said warmly. "My name's Emily. I'll be taking care of you today. What can I get started for you?" The old man looked up slowly, embarrassment flickering in his eyes. He began, then faltered. The woman squeezed his hand. "I'm so sorry, dear," she said, voice fragile. We thought we had enough, but we don't want to cause trouble." Emily's chest tightened. "You're not causing any trouble," she said softly. The old man cleared his throat. "If it's all right," he said carefully, "may we sit a little while? We can pay for coffee. 1 coffee. We'll share." The old woman added quickly. "And water. Tap water is fine. We just needed to sit down. He hasn't been feeling too well." Emily's heart shattered. Two people, old enough to be her grandparents, asking permission to share one coffee. She glanced down at the order pad. Her vision blurred for a second. In her mind, she saw the jar in her room. $42.17. That was it. That was rent. Bus fare. Mom. Hi again, she said warmly. My name's Emily. I'll be taking care of you today. What can I get started for you? The old man looked up slowly, embarrassment flickering in his eyes. He began, then faltered. The woman squeezed his hand. I'm so sorry, dear, she said, voice fragile. We thought we had enough, but we don't want to cause trouble. Emily's chest tightened. You're not causing any trouble, she said softly. The old man cleared his throat. If it's all right, he said carefully. May we sit a little while? We can pay for coffee. One coffee. We'll share. The old woman added quickly, and water. Tap water is fine. We just needed to sit down. He hasn't been feeling too well. Emily's heart shattered. Two people, old enough to be her grandparents, asking permission to share one coffee. She glanced down at the order pad. Her vision blurred for a second. In her mind, she saw the jar in her room. $42.17. That was it. That was rent. Bus fare. Mom. Groceries. Her entire week's survival sat in a jar on a wobbly nightstand. She could hear her mom's cough in her head, her landlord's voice, her own exhausted thoughts. Then she looked at the couple again, at their tired hands, their worn clothes, their quiet shame. Something inside her made a decision before her fear could scream over it. She smiled, full, warm, real. I'll be right back, she said gently. Don't you worry about a thing. On her 10-minute break, Emily went to the back room, where staff kept their bags and personal items. She pulled her small purse from her locker and unzipped it with shaky fingers. Inside were 3 worn bills and a handful of change. She counted it twice. $42. Her week, her safety net, her invisible lifeline. She stared at it for a long moment, then whispered to herself, a blessing's a blessing, even if it hurts. She took a deep breath, shoved the money into an envelope, wrote Table 6 on the front, and walked to the kitchen window. Manny? She called. The cook leaned over, wiping his hands on a towel. Yeah, Em. I want to put in an order, she said. On a separate ticket. I'll pay it out of my tips. He frowned. What's the order? She glanced back at the elderly couple. 2 full specials. Soup, extra bread, coffee, dessert if we have it. Manny raised an eyebrow. They didn't order all that. I know, she said. I did. He stared at her for a moment. You sure, kid? No. Yes. No. Absolutely not. Definitely. She swallowed. Yeah, I'm sure. Manny nodded slowly. All right then, he said. Best plates I make today. As he turned to the grill, her manager's voice cut through the clatter. What's this about extra orders I didn't approve? Emily turned to see Linda, the manager. Early 40s, sharp bob haircut, permanently pinched expression, marching toward her. All right then, he said. Best plates I make today. As he turned to the grill, her manager's voice cut through the clatter. What's this about extra orders I didn't approve? Emily turned to see Linda, the manager. Early 40s, sharp bob haircut, permanently pinched expression, marching toward her. It's not extra, Emily said carefully. I'm covering it myself. Linda's eyes narrowed. We're not a charity, Emily. You start feeding people for free, everyone's gonna expect it. Emily felt her pulse quicken. I'm not asking for a discount. I'll pay full price. Linda crossed her arms. And what about the time? That table's not tipping. They're just sitting there. Emily's jaw tightened. They're human, she said quietly. And they're hungry. Linda scoffed. So are you. You think they'd do the same for you? Emily didn't hesitate. That's not why I'm doing it. Linda shook her head. You want to waste your paycheck feeding strangers? Be my guest. But if this becomes a habit, you and I are going to have a problem. She turned away, muttering, "We're not a soup kitchen." Emily's hands trembled, but she stayed. She waited until the plates were ready. She balanced them on her arms and walked them out to table 6, carrying not just food, but the last of her safety net. The old man stared at the plates, eyes wide. We didn't order all this," he stammered. Emily smiled through the lump in her throat. "I know," she said, "but I think you deserve it." The woman's lips began to tremble. "Dear, we can't pay you back." Emily shook her head gently. "You don't have to," she said. "Just enjoy your meal." And as whispering customers stared, as her manager glared from the counter, Emily walked away, having no idea that from the corner booth, one quiet customer had been filming the entire scene. And the choice that emptied her pockets was about to see. The plates still steamed when Emily set them down. 2 full specials: meatloaf, mashed potatoes, green beans, dinner rolls brushed with butter that melted into glossy shine. The elderly couple just stared at them at first. The old woman's hand went to her mouth. Oh my," she whispered. The old man blinked hard, his eyes going from the plates to Emily's face like he was sure there'd been a mistake. "Miss," he said softly, we really didn't order all this." "I know," Emily replied gently. "It's on me." They both stared at her like she'd just performed some kind of magic trick. The woman shook her head slowly. "We can't let you do that," she whispered. "We can't even afford a slice of pie, let alone all this." Emily swallowed past the lump in her throat. "Sometimes people just need a good meal," she said. "You're not taking anything from me." That last part wasn't exactly true, but she said it anyway. The old man's hand trembled on the fork. "What's your name, dear?" he asked. "Emily." He nodded slowly, like he was memorizing it. "Thank you, Miss Emily," he said. We will repay you someday." She smiled, soft but firm. "You already have," she said, "by letting me do something good." Then she walked away, before the emotion in their eyes broke her composure. Not 3 steps from the table, the whispers started. At the counter, one of the businesswomen leaned over to her friend. "Did she just comp their meal?" she scoffed. Her friend shrugged. "Probably trying to go viral or something," she muttered. "People fake kindness now for clout." A man at the far end of the counter snorted. "No way she paid for that with her own money," he said. "Minimum wage waitresses don't have spare charity income." Sophie slid up beside Emily as she refilled the coffee pot. "Did you really just pay for their food?" she hissed under her breath. Emily kept her voice low. "Yes." "With your money?" "Yes." Sophie blew out a sharp breath. "Girl, you barely have money for yourself," she said. "That rent jar you're always talking about? You just poured it onto a couple of plates." Emily tightened her grip on the pot. "It's fine," she said. "It's not fine," Sophie insisted. "Do you know how many times I've wanted to help somebody and couldn't 'cause I got bills? That's just life. You can't save everybody." Emily's eyes flicked to the booth. The old woman had torn her roll into tiny pieces, offering the larger half to her husband when she thought Emily wasn't looking. He slid the bigger piece back onto her napkin when he thought she wasn't looking. That quiet, unspoken love hurt more than any insult. "I know I can't save everybody," Emily murmured. "I just wanted to save their today." Sophie shook her head. "You're gonna regret this when your landlord comes knocking." Maybe. Probably. Almost definitely. And still, Emily didn't regret it. Not yet. From behind the register, Linda watched the exchange with a storm brewing in her eyes. She pretended to be occupied with receipts, but every few seconds, her gaze flicked back to table 6. She saw the steaming plates. She saw no ticket printed for the order. She saw 2 people who didn't look like they were going to tip. She called out sharply, "Emily." Emily turned, heart skipping. Yes? After your next table, I want you in the office. We need to talk numbers. Numbers. Always numbers. Yes, ma'am, Emily said quietly. Sophie made a face. Oof, she whispered. That's never good. Emily didn't respond. She grabbed a water pitcher and moved to her next table, feeling the weight of Linda's stare between her shoulder blades. As she passed the booth behind the elderly couple, the same office women from before kept their voices low, but not quite low enough. I mean, it's sweet, one said, but let's be real. Yeah, the other cut in. You're working in a diner, not running a charity. She probably expects management to praise her. Watch, next week she'll start a GoFundMe. I gave my last $40 to an old couple, help me pay rent. They chuckled. The words hit like tiny pebbles. But enough pebbles can bruise. Emily kept walking. At the opposite corner booth, a man with a laptop and coffee, someone she barely noticed on normal days, angled his phone just slightly. Watching. Recording. She didn't see him. She was too busy trying to swallow humiliation. When Emily circled back to table 6 with fresh coffee, she noticed the old woman dabbing her eyes with a napkin. Everything okay? Emily asked gently. The old man smiled weakly. It's more than okay, dear, he said. This is the best meal we've had in months. The woman nodded, voice trembling. We didn't want to take advantage of you, she whispered. We shouldn't have come in, but he's been so tired lately, and I just wanted him to sit somewhere warm. Emily blinked back her own tears. You're not taking advantage of me, she said. You're letting me do something I'd want someone to do for my mom. That matters. They shared a look at the mention of her mom. Some silent recognition of shared worry, of loved ones whose health hangs by a thread and a bill. The man clasped her hand suddenly, his fingers warm and shaky. You're a good girl, he said. Don't let the world take that from you. That almost undid her. She managed a smile. Enjoy dessert, she said. I snuck in pie. Their eyes widened again. She walked away before the tears broke loose. The end of her shift finally crawled around, slow and heavy, like the last inch of syrup in the bottle. When she clocked out, she went straight to the tiny staff room in the back. She shut the door gently, sat on the bee, pulled her bag into her lap. She unzipped it and pulled out her tip envelope for the day. Crinkled ones, worn 5s, a 10 someone had left folded under a coffee mug. She counted slowly. $18. That brought her total back home at the end of the day to... She closed her eyes. Don't think about the jar. Her phone buzzed. A text from her landlord. Rent reminder. Due in 3 days. Her stomach twisted. 3 days. She pictured the jar on the nightstand in her tiny room. The coins. The bills. The envelope she'd just emptied at the register. She knew exactly what she'd see if she unscrewed the lid now. Almost nothing. Her fingers tightened around the envelope. Might have been stupid, Em, she muttered to herself. Might have really done it this time. But then she saw the look on the old man's face, the old woman's shaking hands, the way they had looked at each other, like even in hunger they were grateful to have each other. She sighed. If kindness makes me broke, she whispered, I'd still rather be broke than cold. Her throat tightened. She wiped her eyes quickly and stood up. Linda was waiting. The office was cramped, decorated with faded flyers and a calendar stuck on last month. Linda sat behind the desk, glasses perched on the end of her nose. A stack of receipts sat in front of her. Close the door, she said. Emily did. You paid for that table's meal, Linda started, no preamble. Out of your own pocket. Yes, Emily answered. Linda tapped a pen against the desk. Why? They were hungry, Emily said simply, and they couldn't pay. We're not a non-profit, Emily, Linda snapped. You want to donate money, do it on your own time. When it affects operations, it becomes my problem. Emily swallowed. I didn't ask for a discount. I didn't use comp codes. I paid full price, she said quietly. Manny rang it up separately. Linda gestured sharply. That's not the point. You kept a table occupied for over an hour with people who weren't going to tip. That's lost revenue. We're already short-staffed. We don't have time or space for you to play saint. The words stung. I wasn't trying to be a saint, Emily said slowly. I was just trying to be human. Linda's eyes narrowed. Be human on your own dime and your own time, she shot back. Not in my dining room while customers are watching. Emily's jaw clenched. They were watching anyway, she said. They watched an old couple struggle to count coins. They watched you glare. They watched us pretend not to see it. Linda's lips thinned. Careful, Emily. Silence pressed down. Finally, Linda sighed. Look, she said, voice slightly softer. You're a good worker. You show up. You don't cause trouble. But stunts like that, they make us look bad if we can't do it for everyone. It wasn't a stunt, Emily said softly. It was $42 and a little bit of mercy. Linda stared at her for a long moment. Then she looked down at the papers. Go home, she said. We'll talk about your schedule next week. The way she said it made Emily's skin crawl, like a threat she wasn't ready yet to name. The sky was dusky by the time Emily stepped out of Maple Street Diner. Her body felt twice as heavy. Her wallet felt thin. Her feet hurt. Her future felt small. She walked the familiar route home, past the pharmacy where she picked up her mom's prescriptions, past the bus stop where she sometimes sat too long after shifts just to breathe, past the dark storefronts that reflected her tiled face back at her. She reached the rundown building where she rented a room and climbed the stairs slowly. Her mother's cough echoed faintly from the hall. Em, her mom called weakly. That you, baby? Yeah, Mom, it's me, Emily answered, forcing a smile she didn't feel. Just got off. She went straight to the nightstand. Unscrewed the lid of the jar. The coins inside clinked weakly. Not enough, she whispered. Not enough for rent. Not enough for comfort. Not enough for certainty. She glanced at her mom's pill bottles lined up on the dresser. Regret crept in. For the first time that day, she wondered, what if I made a mistake? What if that one act of kindness cost them more than she'd bargained for? She crawled into bed later, staring at the ceiling in the dark. She didn't know it. But while she spiraled in worry, the internet was already rewriting her story. Because somewhere, in a small apartment across town, a customer from the corner booth had just finished editing a video titled, Waitress Spends Her Last Money on Elderly Couple, Faith in Humanity Restored. And as Emily finally drifted into uneasy sleep, the first comments, likes, and shares began to roll in. Morning crept in way too fast. Emily barely slept. When she did, she drifted in and out of dreams, tangled with unpaid bills, her mom's coughing, and the look on the elderly couple's faces when she handed them food. By the time her alarm buzzed at 5:30 a.m., she felt like her bones were made of concrete. Still, she got up, because rent didn't care that she was tired. Illness didn't pause for exhaustion. Life didn't soften just because yesterday had been hard. She kissed her mother's forehead, made her a cup of tea, then hurried out the door toward Maple Street Diner. What she didn't know yet was that while she walked to work with swollen eyes and an empty wallet, the internet wasn't empty anymore. Her name wasn't empty anymore. Her life wasn't empty anymore. Not today. The moment she pushed the diner door open, she felt it. The stares. The whispers. A pressure thick enough to choke on. Sophie nearly dropped the stack of plates she was holding. "Oh my God, Emily!" Emily blinked, startled. What's wrong?" Customers at the counter turned their heads. A group of teenagers whispered excitedly. An elderly man lifted his phone. Is he videoing her? "What is happening?" Emily whispered. Sophie gaped at her. "You seriously didn't see it?" Emily frowned. "See what?" Sophie grabbed her arm and pulled her behind the counter. "Emily, you're viral." Emily froze. "What?" "Like viral, Sophie said, eyes wide. "That couple you fed yesterday?" Someone recorded the whole thing. The clip has like 4 million views since last night. Emily blinked hard, unable to process. 4 million? Sophie nodded frantically. "People are calling you the angel waitress. Hashtags everywhere. Hashtag be like Emily. Hashtag humanity restored." Emily felt her stomach drop. Her first thought wasn't excitement. It was fear. "Does Linda know?" she whispered. Sophie let out a humorless snort. "Oh yeah, she knows. Emily Parker!" Linda's voice cracked like a whip from across the diner. Emily inhaled sharply. "This is gonna be bad," she muttered. Linda stalked over, her heels clicking on the linoleum like gunshots. She held her phone up in one hand, screen glowing with the viral video. "You mind explaining this?" she snapped. Emily looked at the screen. The footage showed her gently placing plates in front of the elderly couple. Their stunned smiles, her walking away with humility. Her throat tightened. Someone must have recorded it," she said softly. Linda's nostrils flared. "Oh, someone did. And now this place is blowing up with calls. People think we're running some kind of charity house." Sophie raised a hand timidly. Actually, people are praising Emily, not the diner." Linda shot her a glare so sharp, Sophie almost ducked. "You think that makes it better?" she barked. "She used this establishment to go viral." Emily stepped back. "What? I didn't go viral on purpose. I didn't even know anyone was filming." Linda crossed her arms. "Well, guess what? Now we have attention we didn't ask for. Reporters outside, phones ringing off the hook, and customers expecting another free show." Emily's voice trembled. "I was helping people, Linda." Linda scoffed. "You were costing me money." The diner had gone nearly silent. Customers watched openly now, some with sympathy, some with curiosity, some filming again. Emily felt heat rising in her chest, embarrassment, humiliation, and anger mixing like oil and fire. "I paid for their meal," she said quietly. "I didn't take anything from the diner." Linda leaned in, eyes cold. "You took time. You took a table. And now you're taking attention away from the business. This is not your stage." Emily swallowed. "It wasn't a performance." Linda raised her voice dramatically, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Well, if you want to play hero, Emily, do it somewhere else. Because here, we follow rules." Sophie gasped softly. "Oh my God, Linda!" "Not now," Linda snapped. Emily felt her hands shaking. "I didn't break any rules," she whispered. Linda jabbed a finger toward her chest. "You broke my rules." Emily's breath hitched. "What rules? Exactly." "The rule that says you don't give away food, even if you paid for it, because that kind of behavior makes us look inconsistent. Weak." Emily's jaw clenched. "Weak?" she repeated softly. "Helping hungry people makes us weak?" Linda waved a dismissive hand. "Spare me the moral lecture. Clean up table 2. And don't think this conversation is over." "My shift hasn't even started yet," Emily whispered. "It has now," Linda snapped. Emily stared at her, then at the floor, then at her trembling hands. She had never felt smaller. but she also had never felt so sure she'd done the right thing. Well, if you want to play hero, Emily, do it somewhere else, because here, we follow rules. Sophie gasped softly. Oh my God, Linda. Not now, Linda snapped. Emily felt her hands shaking. I didn't break any rules, she whispered. Linda jabbed a finger toward her chest. You broke my rules. Emily's breath hitched. What rules exactly? The rule that says you don't give away food, even if you paid for it, because that kind of behavior makes us look inconsistent, weak. Emily's jaw clenched. Weak? She repeated softly. Helping hungry people makes us weak. Linda waved a dismissive hand. Spare me the moral lecture. Clean up table 2. And don't think this conversation is over. My shift hasn't even started yet, Emily whispered. It has now, Linda snapped. Emily stared at her, then at the floor, then at her trembling hands. She had never felt smaller, but she also had never felt so sure she'd done the right thing. Just as she moved toward table 2, the diner door swung open. A luxury SUV, sleek, black, expensive, was parked outside. And now a man stepped inside. Tall, well-dressed, confident posture, salt and pepper hair, sharp eyes that scanned the room instantly. Customers turned, whispers rose. Sophie leaned over to Emily. Oh my God, Emily! Emily! That's Adrian Wells. Emily blinked. Who? Sophie stared at her like she'd said she didn't know what the moon was. Only one of the richest businessmen in the state. Philanthropist, speaker, donates millions. Emily's stomach fluttered with unease. What's he doing here? Sophie shook with excitement. Just as she moved toward table 2, the diner door swung open. A luxury SUV, sleek, black, expensive, was parked outside. And now a man stepped inside. Tall, well-dressed, confident posture, salt and pepper hair, sharp eyes that scanned the room instantly. Customers turned, whispers rose. Sophie leaned over to Emily. Oh my God, Emily, Emily, that's Adrian Wells. Emily blinked. Who? Sophie stared at her like she'd said she didn't know what the moon was. Only one of the richest businessmen in the state. Philanthropist, speaker, donates millions. Emily's stomach fluttered with unease. What's he doing here? Sophie shook with excitement. I think he's here for you. Emily's eyes widened. No way. He doesn't even know me. But when Adrian Wells stepped fully inside the diner, he spoke loudly. I'm looking for the waitress from the video. The diner fell silent. Linda's face went pale. Sophie's eyes sparkled. Customers turned their phones back on. Adrian's gaze swept the room and landed on Emily. Miss Parker, he said, walking toward her with calm purpose. May I speak with you? Emily froze. Her pulse pounded in her ears. Yes, sir, she whispered. He stopped in front of her and turned his screen toward her. On it played the video of her giving the couple their meal. The kindness, the tenderness, the dignity she gave them. She felt her throat close. He spoke softly. This act of compassion has swept across the entire internet. Millions of people have seen it. Millions were touched by it. Her eyes filled with tears she tried desperately to hide. Linda stood stiffly behind the counter, watching like she'd swallowed a lemon. Adrian continued. I came here because the world wanted to know who you are, and I wanted to thank the woman who reminded us what kindness looks like. Emily blinked. I didn't do anything special, she whispered. He shook his head. You did everything special. His voice softened. And the elderly couple you helped. I know them. I've worked with them before. They gave their lives to helping others. They lost everything recently." Emily gasped quietly. Adrian finished. "You didn't just feed two strangers. You honored two people who used to feed this entire community." Tears slid down Emily's cheeks. The diner erupted in whispers. The world was shifting under her feet. And for the first time in her life, it was shifting in her favor. For a second, Emily forgot how to breathe. The kind of man she'd only ever seen on news segments or charity flyers was now standing 3 feet away from her, holding a phone, playing her face back at her. In the video, she watched herself like she was a stranger. The way she set the plates down, the way her smile softened for the elderly couple, the way she walked away, not knowing eyes and cameras were on her. Adrian Wells lowered the phone. "The world watched that," he said gently. Emily swallowed, voice barely stronger than a whisper. I didn't know anyone was filming." "That's what makes it real," he replied. "You weren't performing. You weren't selling anything. You weren't asking for pity. You were just kind." Someone at the counter muttered, "Wow." Someone else whispered, "That's really her." Sophie had her hands over her mouth, eyes wide. Linda stood rigid behind the register, face pale, forced smile stuck like it had been glued on. Adrian turned his screen around again and scrolled. Comment after comment flew by. "I cried watching this. We need more people like this waitress. If anyone knows where she works, I want to tip her." Humanity, temporarily restored. A counter under the video showed the stats. 8.2 million views, 3.1 million likes, 450K shares. Emily stared at it like it was written in another language. That many people saw this?" she whispered. "Yes," he nodded. "And more are watching every minute." Her stomach flipped. I'm nobody," she blurted. "I'm just a server. I just work here. I'm not—" He shook his head. "You're not just anything," he said. "You're exactly what people needed to see." Sophie finally rushed over, unable to hold it in any longer. "Oh my God, Emily," she half whispered, half squealed. "You're famous! Like actually famous! People are duetting you! There's edits with sad music and everything!" Emily blinked. "Duetting? Don't worry about it," Sophie said, waving a hand. "It's a good thing. For once, the internet's losing its mind over kindness, not drama." A man at the far counter called out, "I saw that on my feed this morning. Didn't realize it was this place." "You did good, kid." A woman nearby chimed in. "I told my husband if I ever meet that girl, I'm leaving her the biggest tip I can." "Didn't think it'd be today." Multiple customers nodded. Several phones were already aimed at Emily and Adrian. Linda, sensing a shift in the room, stepped forward with a bright, brittle smile. "Well," she said loudly, "at Maple Street Diner, we always value kindness. Our staff is trained to treat customers with dignity and—" Adrian glanced at her briefly. "Were they trained to threaten firing over that kindness?" he asked mildly. Her smile flickered. Well, that was a misunderstanding," she stammered. We just have policies, you know, and—" Sophie coughed pointedly. "Pretty sure I heard we're not a charity yesterday," she muttered under her breath. A couple of customers side-eyed Linda. Linda's cheeks flushed. "I support my staff," she said quickly, "especially Emily. She's one of our hardest workers. We've always encouraged her kindness." Emily's heart pinched. That wasn't true. But she didn't want a public fight. She just wrapped her arms around herself, overwhelmed. Adrian turned back to Emily, softening. "I didn't come here to cause trouble with your management," he said. "I came because I watched that video, and I couldn't shake your face from my mind." Emily's brows furrowed. My face? The way you looked at them, he said. No disgust, no impatience, no judgment, just concern. His voice dropped a little lower, more personal. You reminded me of the nurse who sat with my father in his last hours. She didn't have to. It wasn't on the chart, but she did. He took a breath. You reminded me of what real care looks like. Emily's eyes burned again. She had no idea what to say to that. I just did what I hoped someone would do for my mom one day, she admitted softly. That, he said, is exactly why I came. The diner door opened again. This time, it wasn't customers. 2 people with press badges and a camera stepped in. A third followed with a microphone. Excuse me, the lead reporter called politely. We're looking for Emily Parker. Emily froze. Sophie actually squealed this time. Oh my God, she whispered. You're on the news. Linda, trying to recover her footing, plastered on another manager smile. Well, this is just wonderful, she said. We're thrilled our little diner can be the backdrop for such a heartwarming story. The reporter gently sidestepped her. Are you Emily? She asked kindly, approaching. Emily nodded, throat tight. Yes, ma'am. The camera light flicked on. Customer shifted, eyes sparkling with interest. The reporter smiled softly. We won't take much of your time, she said. We just want to ask, why did you do it? Emily hesitated. The truth was simple, but vulnerable. Because they were hungry, she said quietly, and embarrassed, and tired. Her hands twisted in her apron. I know what it feels like to count money and realize it's not enough. I know what it's like to choose between food and medicine. I saw my mom in that woman. I saw my future in that man, and I just couldn't walk. The reporter nodded, visibly moved. And you used your own savings? She clarified. Emily nodded again. It was all I had, she said. $42. But they needed it more than I did. The room went silent. Even the clinking of dishes in the kitchen seemed to pause. The reporter lowered her mic slightly. One more question, she said. What would you say to the people watching this? The ones who shared your video, who are calling you a hero? Emily shook her head gently. I'm not a hero, she said. I'm just a waitress trying to pay rent and take care of my mom. She glanced back, toward the booth where the elderly couple had sat the day before. You don't have to be rich to be kind, she continued. You don't have to have a lot to give a little. Sometimes your last $42 can become somebody else's first good meal in weeks. Her eyes shimmered with honest tears. And I really believe, she added, voice trembling, that kindness comes back around. Maybe not in money, but in ways that matter. The reporter stared at her a moment, eyes glossy. That, she said, is the quote I needed today. The cameraman nodded, visibly moved behind the lens. As soon as the interview wrapped, customers began lining up. Not at the register, at Emily. A man in work boots and a high-vis vest pressed a folded bill into her hand. You reminded me of my grandmother, he said. She would have done the same. This is for you. A young woman added a 20 to Emily's apron pocket. For your mom, she whispered. An older lady handed Emily an envelope. I don't have much, she said, but I know what medical bills look like. I'm praying for you. Emily tried to refuse some of them. They wouldn't hear of it. I can't take all this, she said, flustered. Yes, you can, one woman insisted. You'd have done it for any of us. Let us do it for you now. Meanwhile, Linda hovered behind the counter, smile stretched tight. Remember to ring everything in, she called, trying to reclaim authority. And don't block the walkway, folks. Someone muttered, pretty sure she's the last one we're worried about right now. Linda's jaw clenched. Adrian watched all of it quietly. Then he stepped closer again. "Miss Parker," he said, more softly now, so only she and those standing nearest could hear. "I didn't just come to say good job. I came because I wanted to know who you are beyond this video." Emily blinked. "I'm really not that interesting," she said, embarrassed. "I work. I go home. I take care of my mom. That's pretty much it." He studied her expression. "Do you like working here?" he asked gently. She hesitated. Linda's eyes burned holes into the back of her head. "I'm grateful to have a job," Emily said carefully. "That's not what I asked," Adrian replied softly. She gave a small, rueful smile. "No," she admitted. "If I could choose, I'd go back to school. I'd finish my degree. I wanted to be a nurse. But life got complicated." His eyes softened. "Nurses with hearts like yours change the world," he said. She looked down, cheeks hot. "I don't even know how I'm paying rent this month," she murmured. "Nursing school feels like another planet." Adrian was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Then maybe it's time someone helped you the way you helped them." Emily frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" He smiled. "I'd like to talk with you," he said. "Away from cameras. Somewhere quiet. Lunch, maybe?" Her eyes widened. "Lunch?" He quickly shook his head. "Not a date," he clarified. "Just a conversation. From one human being who's been helped before, to another who just reminded him why he gives back at all." Behind him, Sophie's mouth dropped open. Linda's brows shot up. Emily glanced around, overwhelmed. "Why me?" she asked. "Because," he said simply, "you did the right thing when no one was watching, and the world needs more people like that." The diner buzzed with energy, cameras, murmurs, and hope. Emily felt like she was standing in the middle of a whirlwind she didn't ask for, but one that might finally carry her somewhere other than survival. What she didn't know was that the lunch Adrian offered wouldn't just be a meal. It would be the moment he told her the full story of the elderly couple, who they were, what they'd lost, and what they wanted for her now. If the internet had been a quiet wave the night before, by midday it was a tidal surge. The Maple Street Diner had never seen a day like this. Phones rang non-stop. Customers lined up out the door. People who'd never eaten there before were suddenly long-time fans. But it wasn't the pancakes or the coffee they came for. They came for her, for the girl who gave away her last $42 and walked home wondering if she'd just ruined. By late morning, every booth was full. Some people ate. Some just sat with coffee and watched. Others quietly asked Sophie or the other servers, "Is she here today? Is Emily working? Can we sit in her section?" Emily felt like her skin didn't quite fit. She was still running plates, filling coffee, taking orders. But every time she turned, another person was looking at her with soft eyes or shining phones. A teenage girl shyly handed her a folded card. "For you," she whispered. Inside was a handwritten note. "You make me believe good people still exist. I want to be like you when I grow up. Maddie, age 15. Emily pressed the card to her chest for a second before tucking it into her apron pocket. Her heart was full and terrified and overwhelmed. She still hadn't told her mom what was happening. She didn't know how to even put it into words. The tips started getting weird. Not weird bad, weird big. A construction crew left her $80 on a $25 tab. A woman in scrubs left $50 and wrote, "From one caregiver to another, keep going." A family with 3 kids left $100, scrawling on the receipt, "You fed someone's grandparents. We want to help you take care of your mom." Every time she checked her apron pocket, there was more cash stuffed into it. In any other situation, she would have been overjoyed, but now it felt unreal. like standing under a sky that suddenly started raining roses. From the register, Linda watched money flowing to Emily instead of through the till. She did not like that. Not one bit. At one point, she pulled Emily aside, voice low but tense. "Remember, all tips still go through the official system," she said. Emily frowned. "But these are cash, hand to hand. People are literally stuffing bills into my pocket." Linda forced a smile. "Then take them out of your pocket and put them in the tip jar," she said. "We pool here." Emily stared at her. "We pool tips?" They didn't. They never had. Sophie, wiping the counter nearby, froze. "Since when?" she blurted. Linda's eyes flashed. "Since today," she snapped. "It's only fair." One of the guys at the counter spoke up. "Fair?" he said slowly. "We've been coming here for years. We've never seen you pool tips." A woman nodded. "Yeah, we all know who we're tipping." Linda stiffened. "It's our policy now. The diner deserves credit. After all, it's our establishment that—" Adrian's calm voice cut in gently from behind. "With respect. Ma'am?" "No." Everyone turned. He'd been sitting quietly in a booth, watching everything unfold, with sharp eyes and a patient sip of coffee. Linda straightened. "This isn't your business," she said tightly. He raised an eyebrow. "I'd say it is," he replied softly, "since I'm one of the people tipping her, and I intend my money to go to her, not into a new policy jar." A few people clapped quietly. Linda's jaw clenched. "Mr. Wells, this is my diner." "And this is her story," he countered. "You can either respect what people are trying to do for her, or you can keep digging the hole you started yesterday." His tone was still polite. His words were not. Linda faltered. For once, she had no immediate comeback. After the lunch rush finally began to slow, Adrian stood up from his booth. He caught Emily's eye and gestured toward the door. "Ready to step out a minute?" he asked. Emily glanced at Linda. The manager looked stressed, angry, and slightly panicked, but she also knew better than to start a fight in front of cameras and smartphones. She stiffly nodded. "Take a short break," Linda said. "You've earned it." Emily wasn't sure if that was sincere or forced, but she didn't argue. She untied her apron, hung it carefully on the hook in the back, and stepped outside with Adrian. The air felt fresher out here, quieter. The storm out here wasn't made of angry skies. It was made of opportunity. They walked a block down to a small cafe. Nothing fancy, just a quiet place where the rest of the world didn't know her face yet. They sat at a corner table. Adrian didn't pull out his phone, didn't bark at an assistant, didn't talk about business numbers or press angles. He just looked at her with the kind of attention people rarely gave a waitress. Focused, respectful, human. "So," he said gently, "tell me about you." She blinked, caught off guard. "About me?" "Yes," he smiled. "The internet knows one thing about you. I'd like to know the rest." She hesitated. She wasn't used to talking about herself, unless it was something like, "Sorry, we're out of waffles." "Yeah, I can take that table." "No, it's fine. I don't mind covering a double." She glanced out the window. "I'm 23, she started. "I've been working at Maple Street for about 3 years. I dropped out of college in my second year when my mom got sick. She's got chronic lung issues. Can't really work." She twisted her napkin. "I've been doing double shifts to keep us afloat. It's not glamorous." He nodded. "And before that?" he asked. "Before things got hard?" Her eyes softened. "I wanted to be a nurse," she said. "I was studying for it. I love helping people. I love listening, making people feel safe. But tuition?" She laughed humorlessly. Tuition doesn't care about your good intentions. Adrian's gaze didn't waver. And if money wasn't an obstacle, he asked, if you had enough, what would you do? She stared at him. I'd go back, she whispered. Finish school, get my license, work in a hospital or clinic, maybe even specialize in elder care. I like older patients. They have stories. They just need someone to treat them like they're still here, not just waiting to go. He smiled softly. You did exactly that yesterday, he said. She swallowed. They reminded me of my mom, she said. People look at her like she's in the way, or they talk around her instead of to her. I hate that. He nodded slowly. You see people, he said, not just problems. She shrugged one shoulder. I don't know any other way to be. He leaned forward slightly. There's something you should know about the elderly couple, he said. The ones you fed. Her eyes widened. You said you know them? His face softened with memory. Yes, he said. Harold and Margaret Lane. They used to be some of the most generous people in this city. He took a breath. They ran a small business, nothing huge, but enough. They donated every year, sponsored school programs, helped fund shelters. They were the couple that quietly paid off layaway Christmas gifts for families who couldn't afford them. Emily's eyes burned. She pictured Harold's shaking hands, Margaret's trembling smile. They don't look like people who had money, she said gently. They don't anymore, Adrian replied. 3 years ago, Margaret got sick. Complications, hospital stays, specialist after specialist. Their insurance capped out. They burned through their savings. Then their house. He sighed. They gave their lives to helping other people. And when it was their turn to need help, they slipped through the cracks. Emily's chest tightened. That's not fair, she whispered. It's not, he agreed. But it happens. He looked her in the eyes. And yesterday, when everyone else looked away or judged, you saw them. Not as an inconvenience, not as used to be rich or now they're broke. Just human, hungry, tired. She blinked back tears. I didn't know any of that, she said. If I did, you would have done the exact same thing, he finished gently. She nodded. Yeah, she admitted. I would have. Adrian reached into his jacket pocket. I met them this morning, he said. They saw the video. Someone showed it to them. They were over. He pulled out a folded piece of paper. They asked me to give you this. Her hands shook as she took it. The paper was creased, soft at the edges, like it had been held and reheld. She unfolded it slowly. In neat, careful handwriting. Dear Emily, we do not have money to repay you for your kindness, but we have our gratitude, and we give it freely and completely. Thank you for treating us like humans when we felt invisible. Thank you for feeding us when pride told us not to ask. We spent our lives trying to give to others. Losing everything made us feel like we had nothing left to offer. You reminded us that kindness still exists and that we are still worth it. May blessings return to you multiplied. With love, Harold and Margaret Lane. The last line blurred as tears flooded her eyes. She pressed the note to her chest. I don't deserve this, she choked. Yes, Adrian said softly. You do. He let her sit with the emotion for a moment. Then he spoke again. Emily, he said, you changed 2 lives in one night. She shook her head. I just bought dinner. No, he said, you restored dignity. That's rarer than you think. He looked at her with a seriousness that made her pulse jump. I don't believe in accidents, he continued. I was meant to see that video. I was meant to come here. And I believe I'm meant to help you now. Her brows knit in confusion. "Help? Me how?" she asked. He smiled that calm, grounded smile again. "We'll talk details soon," he said. "But here's what I will tell you today. You won't have to pick between rent and medicine much longer. You won't have to choose between taking care of your mom and finishing school. And if you still want to be a nurse—" His eyes softened. "I intend to make sure money never stands in your way again." Emily stared at him, stunned. "Why?" she whispered. "Because," he said simply, "you did for others what the world should have done for you." The storm around her life had fully arrived. Reporters, millions of eyes, a viral video, unexpected allies, a note from two people she thought she'd never see again. And now, a promise. The kind of promise that didn't sound like charity. It sounded like a door opening, one she'd thought was locked forever. Emily sat there, holding the elderly couple's handwritten note, staring at it like it was something sacred. Because it was. Her throat felt squeezed shut, her eyes hot and overflowing. She wiped them with her sleeve, embarrassed. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm not usually like this." Adrian's voice was steady, gentle. "Please don't apologize for having a heart," he said. "The world doesn't need fewer emotions. It needs more people who feel them." She tried to laugh, but it broke into another tear. Her whole body was trembling. Relief, shock, exhaustion, disbelief all fighting inside her. She hadn't cried like this in years. Not in front of another human being, not where anyone could see. But something about the last 24 hours, something about Harold and Margaret's note, something about Adrian's kindness, it all cracked her open. She pressed both hands over her face and breathed a shaky breath. "I don't know what's happening," she whispered. "Yesterday I was just trying to make it through another shift. And now everyone is looking at me, talking about me, filming me." He nodded. "It's overwhelming. Anyone would feel that way." She shook her head. "No, I'm overwhelmed because—" She looked up at him, eyes red-rimmed, voice trembling. "Because this is the first time anything good has happened to me. In a long time." The words hung there, true, raw, painful. Adrian's expression softened. "Emily," he said quietly, "tell me what life has looked like for you." She hesitated, but something inside her said tell him. So she did, piece by piece. "My mom was diagnosed 5 years ago," she said, "and I was still in college when it happened. She didn't have anyone else. It was just us." Her fingers twisted the napkin into knots. "I thought I could work part-time and take care of her, but her treatments got expensive. And then, the medical insurance ran out." She swallowed hard. "I sold everything I had, stopped school, took the first job I could get, and I've been working ever since. Double shifts, sometimes triples." Her voice cracked again. "Most days I don't think about the future. I just try to get through the day." Adrian nodded slowly, letting her speak. "My mom apologizes a lot," Emily whispered. "She thinks she ruined my life, and I keep telling her she didn't. But sometimes," her breathing hitched, "sometimes it feels like the world forgot we exist." A tear fell onto her hand. "And when I saw that couple counting coins yesterday, I saw me and my mom. I saw how people look at us like we're dragging the world down, like we're inconvenient." She shook her head fiercely. "I didn't want them to feel that way, not even for one day." Her voice grew soft. "I gave them my last $42 because I know what it feels like to have nothing and no one looking out for you." She looked up at him again, eyes wet but steady. "That's all. That's all it was. And somehow it turned into all of this." Adrian exhaled slowly, deeply, not pity, recognition. "Emily," he said, I've met a lot of people in my life. Employees, executives, volunteers, donors. He paused. But I've never met someone who did what you did with nothing left to give. She shook her head. I'm not special. He leaned forward. You're exactly the kind of person the world never sees coming. She blinked at him. He reached into his jacket again and pulled out another envelope. This one thicker, neatly sealed. I came here today with more than words. He said, ... He placed the envelope on the table between them. I said I wanted to help you, and I meant it. Emily stared at it, afraid to touch it. What is it? She whispered. He folded his hands. First, he said gently, your mother's medical bills. Her heart stopped. What about them? They're gone, he said simply. Paid in full. Her mouth fell open. What do you mean, gone? I mean, he clarified. I contacted the billing office this morning. I wrote a check. Your mother no longer owes a single dollar. Emily's vision blurred instantly. No, she said weakly. Adrian, that's too much. You don't even know me. He smiled softly. I know enough. She sobbed, a deep, uncontrollable cry she'd been holding for 5 years. He waited, patient, unshaken. When she finally wiped her eyes again, he continued. Second, he said, tapping the envelope, is a full scholarship to return to school. Nursing program. Tuition, books, fees. All covered. I'm sorry, I can't assist with that request. No, she whispered. I can't accept something like that. You can, he said, because you earned it without even knowing. Her hands covered her mouth. She stared at him, like she was afraid he'd vanish if she blinked. And third, he added gently, when you graduate, if you choose to, I want you to join my foundation. She froze. My what? My philanthropic medical foundation, he clarified. We work with elderly patients, community clinics, nursing homes, hospice care. I want you on my team. Her lips parted. You want me to work for you? I want someone with your heart, he said. Your compassion, your instinct to help without cameras, without credit, without expecting anything in return. He leaned back slightly, and I want to make sure you never have to pick between helping others and surviving again. Emily pressed a trembling hand to her chest. I don't understand, she whispered. Why would you do all this for me? His answer was simple. Because yesterday, Emily, you did something for 2 people the world forgot. He paused. And today, the world remembered you. Her tears spilled again, heavier now. Relief mixed with release, with disbelief, with decades of struggle suddenly cracking open. I don't know how to thank you, she whispered. He shook his head. You already did, yesterday. She sobbed into her hands again. He slid a napkin toward her. Let yourself feel this, he said softly. You've carried enough alone. For a long moment, Emily sat there, crying, shaking, breathing, letting 5 years of tension pour out of her. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel alone. She felt seen. She felt chosen. She felt like maybe God hadn't forgotten her after all. When she finally composed herself, he nodded at the envelope. Open it, he said. She did. Inside were scholarship papers, confirmation of medical bill payments, a letter offering future employment, and handwritten at the bow. Kindness returns multiplied. It was the same line from the elderly couple's note. She laughed, broken, amazed, emotional. That's what they wrote, she whispered. Harold and Margaret. He nodded. They said you'd understand. Emily held both notes to her chest. I do, she said thickly. I really do. Not a lottery. Not a miracle falling from the sky. Just one choice. A tired waitress saw two hungry strangers and chose kindness instead of survival instinct. That choice had just rewritten her future. Emily walked back toward the diner in a daze, like her feet were touching the ground, but her soul was floating somewhere above her. The envelope Adrian gave her felt heavier than a brick, but in the best way possible. Inside it was her mother's freedom from medical debt, her own return to school, a future job waiting for her, a new life, all because she gave up $42. As they approached the diner, the windows were fogged from bodies and breath. The lunch crowd was thick, loud, buzzy with energy. But the moment Adrian reached for the door handle, the entire diner went quiet, dead quiet. Every head turned toward them. And then the applause hit, loud, sudden, explosive. Emily flinched at first, startled. Then her cheeks flushed red as Sophie burst through the crowd yelling, "Emily! Em, get in here!" She tugged her inside. People clapped harder, customers standing, customers crying, customers holding phones up as if they were capturing something sacred. One man shouted, "You're the reason we came today." A woman added, "You give us hope, sweetheart." An older gentleman nodded respectfully at her. "You're a good person in a world that forgets to be good." Emily pressed a hand over her mouth. I don't know what to say," she whispered. Someone called out, "Just say you'll keep being you." Cheers erupted again. From behind the counter, Linda stood awkwardly, wringing a receipt roll between her hands. She watched the applause, the joy, the cameras, and she knew exactly how badly she'd misjudged the situation. She cleared her throat loudly, trying to regain authority. "Everyone, please, let's not block the aisles. We still need—" But no one cared about her right now, not even slightly. She approached Emily hesitantly, cheeks pink. "Emily, could we speak for a moment?" she said. Emily stiffened slightly, but nodded. They stepped aside near the pie display. Linda sighed, trying to find her words. "Look, yesterday I wasn't fair to you," she admitted. "I thought you were trying to pull something, or make the diner look bad. I didn't see the truth." Emily watched her calmly. Linda swallowed. "Today opened my eyes. People aren't here because of us. They're here because of you." The admission tasted bitter, but she said it anyway. "I'm sorry," she added quietly, "for yelling at you, for doubting you." Emily nodded gently. "Thank you," she said softly. "That means a lot. And if you need time off to help your mom or deal with all this attention, we can arrange it." Emily's eyes widened. "Really?" Linda nodded reluctantly. "Yes, and if you ever want your job back after school, there will always be a place for you here." Emily blinked. "I appreciate that." They shared a small, tentative smile. For the first time, Linda looked at her not as an employee, but as a human being. Just when the crowd began to settle, the diner door opened again, and in walked Harold and Margaret Lane. Not trembling, not hunched, not beaten down, but dressed neatly, standing tall, eyes bright with emotion. Emily gasped. "Harold? Margaret?" Margaret smiled, warm, soft, glowing. "We were hoping you'd still be here," she said. Harold held a cane, but stood strong. People made space, clearing a path for them. Margaret stepped forward, taking Emily's hands between hers. "Thank you," she whispered, "for yesterday, for seeing us." Harold's voice trembled. "You knew nothing about us. Most people don't want to know. But you looked at us like we were still people." Emily's eyes filled again. "You are people," she said gently. "You always were." Margaret hugged her suddenly, arms shaking. Emily hugged her back. Harold placed a hand on Emily's shoulder. "We saw the video," he said. "We saw everything that's happened. You deserve every blessing coming your way." Emily wiped her eyes. "I just bought you dinner," she whispered. Harold shook his head. "No, you restored something much bigger." He tapped his heart. "Faith." The crowd clapped once more as the couple embraced her. This time, the applause was softer, more emotional, like gratitude had a sound. Adrian stepped forward next, smiling at all of them. "I think," he said loudly, "that this town just witnessed how one act of kindness can connect hundreds of strangers." The crowd murmured in agreement. Then he looked at Emily. "Ready to tell your mom the news?" he asked. Emily laughed through her tears. "She'll think I'm lying." Sophie popped up beside her. "I want to come when you tell her." Emily giggled. "I don't think we'll all fit in my room." Someone from the back shouted, "I'll donate chairs." Another, "I'll bring food." "Make it a celebration." The diner hummed with excitement. A few minutes later, she stepped outside with Adrian. The sky above was bright, clear blue after days of gray. She held the envelope to her chest. "I don't know how to live a life where things turn out okay," she admitted softly. He smiled. "You'll learn," he said, "one blessing at a time." She took a slow breath. "I'm scared," she whispered. "That means you're human," he replied. "But you're not alone anymore." Her eyes softened. "Dot. Tut. Tut." "I want to be a nurse," she said. "More than anything." He nodded. "And now you will be." Her future no longer looked like survival. It looked like possibility, like sunrise, like promise. Before heading home, she turned back toward the diner. Linda waved weakly from behind the counter. Customers smiled at her through the window. Sophie blew her a dramatic kiss. Harold and Margaret waved like grandparents sending off a grandchild. Emily lifted her hand in return. Her voice, quiet but sure, whispered, "Kindness comes back multiplied." And this time, she didn't just believe it. She was living proof. The world didn't change overnight. But for the first time in years, Emily did. Her mornings no longer began with dread or deciding between which bill she could afford to ignore. There were no more panicked calculations in her head. No more silent prayers over her mother's pill bottles. Instead, her days began with purpose, with possibility, with hope. And it all started with a framed piece of paper hanging above her small desk. Harold and Margaret's handwritten note. She read it every morning before opening her laptop for nursing school. "Thank you for treating us like humans. Blessings return multiplied." Those words grounded her, guided her, reminded her why she was doing all of this. Her mother noticed the change first. Emily walked through the door after her first week of classes, carrying her books, smiling, in a way her mother hadn't seen since before the illness. "Honey, you look alive," her mother whispered, tears welling. Emily set the books down carefully. "I feel alive," she said simply. Her mother started to apologize, like she always did, trying to say she'd been a burden. But Emily stopped her gently. "Mom, your illness didn't ruin my life," she said. "It shaped it. It's the reason I want to be a nurse. It's the reason I understand people like Harold and Margaret." Her mother cried and held her tight. For the first time in years, they cried out of gratitude, not despair. Though school kept her busy, Emily still volunteered part-time at Adrian's foundation. The first day she walked through the community center doors, wearing her foundation badge and a nervous smile. The staff welcomed her like they'd been waiting. Adrian introduced her to the team. "This," he said with pride, is the young woman who reminded millions of what kindness looks like. People applauded softly. Emily blushed. A nurse approached her afterward and said, "You're going to fit here perfectly. I can tell already." She spent afternoons helping elderly patients check in, organizing supplies, reading to people who had no one, and learning names, because everyone mattered to her. One man clasped her hand and said through a rasping voice, "Thank you for seeing us." She smiled. "I always will." Harold and Margaret came by the center often. Cleaner clothes, brighter eyes, healthier bodies. Emily hugged them each time, treating them like family, because in her heart they were. Margaret once whispered in her ear, "God sent you to us, little one." Emily whispered back, "Maybe he sent all of us to each other." One afternoon, Harold arrived with a small wooden box. "I made this for your desk," he said, handing it to her. Inside was a beautifully carved plaque with the words, "Kindness builds what money cannot." Emily cried so hard she nearly dropped it. News crews faded away. Online attention drifted to the next trend. But what stayed? People remembered her story. Not for fame, not for clout, but for the message it carried. Parents told their children about the waitress who helped strangers. Church groups shared her story before prayer. High school teachers used it in leadership classes. Emily didn't seek fame, but compassion became her legacy anyway. By mid-semester, her professors took notice. "You have a gift for patient care," one said. "You'll make a phenomenal nurse," another added. She worked hard, studying late, writing notes, practicing on models, memorizing medical terms. But every time she grew tired, discouraged, or overwhelmed, she'd look at the framed note from Harold and Margaret. Those words were her anchor, her reminder that she belonged, that she mattered, that she was capable of changing lives, that she already had. On a quiet evening after class, Emily walked into her room, set her backpack down, and sat at her desk. She touched the frame lightly. Her voice spoke into the dim room, soft as prayer. "I gave away my last $42, she said, smiling, "and God returned it in ways I couldn't have imagined." Her mother called from the other room. "Emily, everything okay?" Emily smiled. "Yeah, Mom, everything's okay." She stood up, grabbed her stethoscope, practice only for now, and draped it around her neck. It felt right, like coming home to a future she thought she'd lost. Before she left for her volunteer shift, she slipped Harold and Margaret's note into her bag, right next to her textbooks. A reminder, a blessing, a promise. As she walked toward the foundation building, evening sun warm on her shoulders, her thoughts formed a quiet voiceover. Kindness isn't a job. It isn't a hobby. It isn't something we do when someone is watching. She passed a man asking for directions and helped him with patience. Kindness is a calling, a way of seeing the world. She pushed open the doors of the foundation, greeted by smiles, warmth, and purpose. And sometimes, Harold and Margaret waved from the waiting room. Emily waved back, heart glowing. Blessings don't return as money. She stepped forward, ready to serve, ready to learn, ready to heal. They return as doors opening, where? She glanced at the note sticking out of her bag. Blessings return multiplied. Dot.